Welcome back to MOVIEidol. So here is my review for the series finale of Game of Thrones. So obviously be careful for major spoilers for the final episode to the series. Also, quick mention here because a lot of people were asking about my Instagram. It's back up now. I did have to start a new account, which is really annoying, but yeah, I'll leave a link down below. It's just at MOVIEidol. I will continue some of the discussion there and I'll talk about tonight's episode. So after you watch this video, just make sure to go on down there and yeah, I'll see you guys over there. Also, I'm only going to have one video out today just because the show's over. There's obviously not a trailer to break down for next week's episode unless they give some sort of tease at all tonight about the prequel series, which I just really doubt. Tonight's about Game of Thrones. The prequel stuff will come in like a few months. Before we jump in though, I do have to warn you for spoilers for the finale of Game of Thrones. And I mean major spoilers because that's it. We're done now. The show is literally done now. I can't believe we've all just seen the ending to Game of Thrones. Like that's it. It's literally just done now. So I'm not sure where to really start with all of this. I mean, usually I like to talk about things that happened earlier in the episode and see how it might affect future episodes or what have you. But now, you know, obviously it's the end. I can't do that. But I do have some notes here. I mean, Tyrion seeing the disaster. Tyrion finds Jaime and Cersei. First of all, that scene I really loved. I loved the fact that Tyrion actually got to see Jaime and Cersei, because I was wondering how he was going to find out. I really wanted something like that to happen because otherwise they really have no idea that they died, right? There would be no way for Tyrion to come to that conclusion because if he did, then that would just be really stupid because it's like, what? They couldn't have went missing instead. They had to die. So I'm glad they clarified that there. I know a lot of people could be picky about how like Cersei and Jaime's bodies were completely like perfect for the most part. They died together like that and there wasn't a lot of rubble, but it made a lot of sense. The only thing that I would kind of nitpick in there, and I'm not going to nitpick here, but it would be like the overall looks of their bodies because, I mean, all that rubble fell on them. They should be crushed to shit. But this happens all the time in TV and movies. And, you know, this isn't just unique to Game of Thrones right now. I know right now it's easy for people to nitpick Game of Thrones, but that moment, it made sense. That's what it's like in movies. Like that seems like that happened. Now, the Jon versus Grey Worm thing really got executed well, I think, in tonight's episode. It was introduced in last week's episode, I believe. And since the whole Tyrion and Jon versus Danny thing really just got introduced in episode 5, with what they did with Jon and Grey Worm, I think it worked out really well, honestly. Like, I mean, I 100% get it. I get why Grey Worm is just so, you know, he wants to defend Danny. I think that's probably one of the most tragic things about tonight's episode is that Danny is just gone now, which I do want to talk about because she died about halfway through this episode, which was something I was hoping for. I was hoping the conclusion, like if she was going to die, because I felt pretty good about her dying, but I was hoping the conclusion to everything, to what was going on, was going to happen at least halfway through this final episode. And the rest of the half will be dealing with who gets on the throne and sort of the aftermath and all the goodbyes to the characters. Like, I didn't want them dealing with Danny and then all of a sudden the last 10 minutes, everyone is just here, there, whatever, and they're rushing everything, right? Like, I'm really happy with everything that happened post Danny, but I also do love everything that happened throughout the entire episode. Like, I really love tonight's episode. There was a weird issue though after Danny's death and how it transitioned to like a few weeks later, but that's sort of a common theme, I think, right now with Game of Thrones over the last 2 seasons. Is just they like to do time jumps. Like it happens a lot. The Danny Drogon wing shot I absolutely loved. Like I loved that shot. Her speaking High Valyrian. It reminded me of all the stuff she would do in Marine, which is super important to think about. Like I know they didn't do a great job in executing her descent into madness, but when you watch her afterwards, she doesn't seem that evil. The only reason why, like she does seem like normal Danny. Like the only reason why she seems a little bit evil is because we're now on Jon's side, right? I mean, I was always on Jon's side no matter what. I guess for the people who supported Danny, I guess tonight's episode was probably pretty rough for you guys, but for someone who's always been Team Stark, after she arrested Tyrion and all of that happened, I was just like, there really is no going back from that. I know she killed a bunch of people beforehand, but I don't know, that's weird. For some reason, Tyrion's like the last straw. The Danny versus Tyrion stuff, like they've been setting this up for a long time, so this I obviously saw coming. They've been setting this up since last season even. I love this line though from Tyrion. Tyrion in tonight's episode was very, I guess the word that comes to mind is honest. He was just brutally honest in tonight's episode. Like he said, I freed my brother, you slaughtered a city. He grabs that hand of the queen pin and just chucks it on the ground and then he gets arrested for it. All of his scenes with Jon afterwards and, you know, obviously the very final scene with him sitting around the table, like Tyrion is just such an amazing character. And I think him and Jon are really going to be the 2 parts of this series that I'm going to miss. And I'm really happy both of them got a very satisfying ending. Those were 2 characters that I've been wanting to make out of this. I didn't want them dying. the fact that Jon is where he is and Tyrion is where he is, I'm so happy with that. I'm so happy that Tyrion is in King's Landing because I feel like that's where he belongs. His best scenes, his best story was when he was in King's Landing, and when he left, yeah, a lot of it I did like, but I've missed him in King's Landing. So having him there, having him the hand of the king, working there with Bran, which was really weird. Actually, one thing I do want to mention during the Jon and Tyrion scene, I love the fact that Jon mentioned that there's nothing after death. And the reason is because I wanted him to comment on it a little bit. Like, he's barely talked about it since his resurrection. I wanted him to just say something like that, something more exact, and he finally did. Like, Tyrion knew he was going to die, and he asked him, he was like, well, is there anything after death? And he just says, not that I've seen, which is still something I wish this show dived into a little bit more. I do wish that it got more into like Jon and how he views life now, right? George R.R. Martin is very different than Tolkien in that way. That's actually one of Martin's biggest criticisms of Tolkien, is that when you die, there's no consequence. There's no like big change in character. He brings up Gandalf. When Gandalf dies in Fellowship of the Ring, when he comes back, he's actually more powerful, right? And he's pretty much the same Gandalf. So that's why in the book, Lady Stoneheart, I won't spoil who that is for people who haven't read the book, but that's why that character is so different from who that character used to be, and why I do think when Jon is resurrected, because I do see that happening in the book, obviously, why I do think he's going to be a little different than the Jon Snow that we got, but not much different. But I do think George R.R. Martin's going to get into that part of it. How does Jon deal with death? How does he deal with like the fact that he died and he came back? What does that do to a person? I wish we would have gotten more of that, honestly, in this series. What's hilarious is Daenerys never sat on the throne. So the last person to sit on that throne was Cersei. She touched the throne, and then that was pretty much it. I feel like she should have just sat on the throne. I don't know. I wish we could have gotten at least that, but I guess for how the scene played out, it made a lot of sense. Now, the scene came out of nowhere. It happened very fast, but after it played out, I was very, very happy with it. Only because, like I said, I really wanted the last half an hour, 40 minutes to focus on the aftermath and like who sits on the throne and all of that. I really wanted all of that. Everything that happened after that is just 100% perfect in my opinion. Jon Killing Danny, like at the end of the day, I don't really buy their relationship, honestly. They definitely got a lot closer, and I really liked the relationship in season 8. I really did, honestly. But season 7, I think they should have built that relationship better, because I never felt that struggle that Jon was going through. When Jon had to stab her, I was like, yeah, stab her. It makes sense. It didn't feel like he was having a hard time doing it because I really felt like there was no connection there. That could be just me, but that's how I felt there. And then Dany's dead, which is just very, very tragic. Like, as much as I wanted her to be the villain, I think this is what George R.R. Martin was talking about this ending being very bittersweet. Like, as much as I wanted her to be the villain, it does suck that she's dead, because the world is better without her, right? Like, she literally was a tyrant, and I love that scene between her and Jon. Like, she says, I know how to make this world better. I can do it, and you know how too. And then Jon was like, well, what of everyone else who thinks the same thing? And Dany's like, well, they don't get to make that decision. It was a very power-hungry thing to say, and that really was in line with Dany's character. That is something she would have said in season 1, 2, 3, maybe not season 1, but in 2, 3, 4, you know? Overall, it's sad. I really want to read like an after lore book or something that explains what happened over the next 100 years of Game of Thrones. Where did Drogon take her body? I really want to know that. And it's just very sad. I mean, she's gone now, right? And I don't know. I'm going to miss Daenerys, honestly, but I'm going to miss all these characters. The decision to put Bran on the throne, I actually predicted in a tweet, I think it was earlier today or yesterday, I can't remember, but I predicted as a joke. I wasn't actually predicting. And look at that. He just became king of the 6 kingdoms. And it makes perfect sense. It came out of nowhere, sure, people can argue that, but it makes perfect sense. Like, besides the whole king thing, he is the three-eyed raven. He is the most powerful being in that world. The fact that he's actually the king now, I mean, yeah, he is the most powerful being in the world, literally in every way. And also the way they chose to decide who's going to be king and queen and whatnot, I really, really liked. Like, Bran's going to be king until he dies, and then the small council or whatever council will get together there, and they'll decide who's going to be the next king and queen, and they're going to do it in the dragon pit. So that I really, really liked. Like, that is sort of a blend of what everyone was talking about, because people like were wondering, how are they going to end this? Is it going to be a democracy? Are they going to be doing like elections? Or are we going to have the Iron Throne still and continue with that? But they sort of did a blend. They destroyed the throne, which was the key to all the Targaryens, to Aegon's conquest, and still kept the whole king and leadership thing of the 6 kingdoms, but also aren't following the whole thing about the family having the throne, and that family is always going to be on the throne. So the Starks are going to have it for however long Bran survives. Maybe they'll continue it on afterwards. Maybe Sansa will have children. One of them will be. Yeah, I mean, I loved tonight's episode. I really did. It was a proper goodbye. Like, overall, I have a lot of issues with things that happened throughout the season. Like, episode 1 and 2 were okay. I think episode 1 I really liked. Episode 2 was, I'm pretty sure, good. I can't remember exactly what happened. Episode 3 and 4 really just screwed with me because of how much they rushed everything. And then 5 I liked, and 6 obviously I like. I really feel like if this season was 10 episodes, it would have worked out perfectly. Episode 1 and 2 could stay the same. Episode 5 and 6 could have been episode 9 and 10, and then just have 3 and 4 split up somewhere in between episodes 3 all the way to 8, right? Where the long night could have happened in episode 3, but maybe ended it at the end of episode 5 or something, and then 6, 7, and 8 could have been everything that happened in episode 4, but just stretched out more. They could have introduced new things, showed more of the other places like Storm's End, and you know, there's a lot that they could have done there, and that is always going to be a huge criticism of mine. I think the reason why I like this ending is because this is George R. R. Martin's ending for the most part, right? That was the major thing when they made this deal, like to make this series, is that they had to know the ending, and so Jon got sent to the wall. Arya is going to find out what is west of Westeros, which is an ending I predicted for her. I think everyone did seasons ago. Tyrion does promise to go see Jon again, and he'll probably piss off the edge of the world. Sansa's queen in the north, and I absolutely love that. Obviously, we all saw that coming for her. Sam wrote A Song of Ice and Fire, which just is a total Lord of the Rings moment. I think what I'm so excited for and why I love this ending, and I know a lot of people are probably going to disagree with me, like every Game of Thrones video, at least a third of the like-dislike ratio is like hated. Like it'll be 1,000 likes and like 300-400 dislikes. And it's because this show is super popular with fans. You know, this show is so, everyone has been so invested in this for like 10 years now. But what gets me so excited about this ending is just imagining what the future is going to be. So Jon is the last Targaryen, right? And now he is up north. He's not going to father any children. He is going to be there for the rest of his life. And I think he will have a death similar to Aemon Targaryen, right? And they will be celebrating him in like 70 years or whenever he dies, and they'll be saying he is the last Targaryen, and he'll just die up there. That's poetic. Tyrion's probably going to die as Hand of the King in King's Landing. He'll probably die in the next 40 years or something. Bran will die, and then whoever's around then, if Sam is still alive at that point, you know, whoever's a part of that council will vote on the next person. Who is that going to be? I'm interested in the next part of all of this. I'm really interested in the lore going forward. I want George R. R. Martin to finish his books already and then write the next 500 or to 1,000 years of this series. I really want that. But overall, I really loved tonight's episode, and I think it was a perfect ending to the series. I'm still disappointed about all the rushed storytelling. All my complaints still stand. The White Walker stuff was very disappointing, but overall, I like where all the characters are at. Like all the major characters, I liked where their story ended, but push thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.